Well, Brad Blakeman is a former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush. Joe Sestak, former Pennsylvania congressman, who both joins us now. Brad and Joe, good to see you.
Good to be with you, Eric.
Brad, let me start with you. How do you think this will play into the campaign?
Well, I think, Eric, it gets stranger and stranger each day. The lies are being exposed, the cover-ups being exposed, and quite frankly, it's clear to me that this didn't fit the political narrative that the White House wanted to have the American people believe, and that is Osama bin Laden's dead and that al-Qaeda has been destroyed. Osama may be dead, Eric, but al-Qaeda is alive and well, killing American personnel and destroying American property. And there's still a heck of a lot of answers that have to be forthcoming to the American people, like why hasn't the FBI been able to get in there? How is it that CNN is able to contaminate a crime scene and take crucial evidence? The fact that an FBI agent can't be in there yet to investigate a crime they committed 2 weeks ago is a crime in and of itself. And this administration has a lot to answer for. They wanted the weak link in this election to be foreign policy, and now it's front and center.
Joe, as Brad says, is the White House and the president lying? Is there a cover?
No, I don't think they're lying at all. But I do think that the response has been less than commanding. I mean, I have served in the White House at the National Security Council and headed Deep Blue, the Navy's anti-terrorism unit. The first information you usually get from a crisis overseas is usually imperfect, wrong, or it's going to change over a few days. There's not a question they were a little late to release on a Friday afternoon, however, an update that, yes, this was a planned attack. That said, Eric, I think the real defining issue here is the security of that compound. I mean, we know that the British ambassador, the United Nations office, and the Red Cross office in Benghazi had been attacked just recently prior to the attack on our consulate and the murder of our wonderful ambassador there. And yet the equivalent of about what it costs to keep one service member in Afghanistan for half a year is the protection that we gave that consulate. Now, who's to blame? I think the administration needs to really take on board that we aren't protecting our warriors overseas in our State Department. But Congress, since 2010, has cut our security funding for our embassies overseas by 10%. And Eric, you know as well as I do, you've had a lot of debates whether we should cut our military by sequester by 10% over 10 years, 5 times longer. This 10% that's been cut in our budget for security overseas is a responsibility at both ends of 1600. It's not one party, it's both together.
Well, Admiral, are you saying that Chris Stevens and the other 3 were killed because Congress didn't give them money to protect that compound?
Oh, I think without a question you cannot say that there is a direct link. But I think you have to say with me that, you know, when you're cutting your security overseas by 10%, where else aren't we able to fund the correct protective measures? But no, if I could, just one other issue. I think another legitimate issue to raise upon all this is how much has al-Qaeda become interwoven within the Arab Spring out there? This is a legitimate issue for both candidates to be discussing. Have they really changed and kind of attacking us here in our homeland to trying to get our consulates overseas? And if so, then how much has Congress and the United States administration come together to fund adequately all our warriors and our departments throughout the global environment of the world?
Well, Brad, if there was this shift by al-Qaeda, should the administration have come out with what they said originally, that it was this dopey movie?
Look, Eric, it fit their narrative at the time. They wanted the world to believe, they wanted Americans to believe that the YouTube video was the causation for the terrorist attack in Libya. We know now that's false. And what's worse is, and Admiral Sestak is right, that al-Qaeda is interwoven throughout the Arab Spring in numerous countries. But what did our president do? And he didn't stand up to our enemy. He apologized to them and gave them the exact excuse they needed to step up violence all over the world by giving credence to the YouTube video, which we know now was not the causation of the terrorist attack in Libya. So the president spread unrest against Americans throughout the world instead of being a leader and standing up to it.
Finally, we
have this. But if I could, Eric, just one question. I didn't say they are. I said, are they? What's the probability? How much are they? Are they not? That's a legitimate issue for us to have the president as well as his opponent try to raise as an issue.
But Admiral, by the administration giving credence to the YouTube video instead of standing up against a terrorist attack, I believe, and others believe, that that was the causation for the violence that we saw spread through dozens of countries, not only in the Middle East, but beyond.
Well, look,
I think that's quite a stretch right there, Brad, with all due respect. I mean, again, remember, the president, the day after, said this was an act of terror. Now, I do agree that they stress certain points more than others, but I think there's a legitimate argument on both sides here of how do we better address this as we go forward, rather than just condemning each other.
All right, and finally, I mean, how does this have legs, and how much does it? Look what happened in 1979. 444 days, 52 Americans held hostage, basically cost Jimmy Carter the election. Let's take a look at the Gallup tracking poll back then. In November of '79, President Carter was at 38%. By the end of that month, he was at 51%. November 1980, the election, he plummeted to 31%. Brad, we have an ambassador murdered, 3 other Americans killed. How would this impact, finally, do you think, the campaign? Will it have the lasting impact of the hostage crisis?
Well, Eric, certainly this election, first and foremost, is going to turn on the disastrous performance of this president on the economy. But having said that, the president's strong point against Mitt Romney was foreign policy. And I think we've just seen that argument unravel, that this president has been asleep at the switch. He's been incompetent. He's lied to the American people. He's let others lie. The president had superior knowledge than his subordinates, yet he permitted them to go out and make false statements. So now I think foreign policy certainly is going to be a key factor, because it's the last debate before Election Day.
Joe, last word.
Yeah, I think he makes a good point. I think this issue is going to turn primarily on national security begins at home, our economy and jobs creation. All the 4 million jobs created after the first year of the Obama administration, a legitimate issue for him to say, I'm making progress or not. That said, on foreign policy, I do think this should be an issue of what we just discussed. However, I think that rightly it's going to be laid in the context of the president not only having stopped the war in Iraq, gone and violated Pakistani airspace, which wasn't done before, and getting al-Qaeda in Pakistan, that is, bin Laden, and putting it in context of 12 embassies getting attacked during the 8 years of the Bush administration and losing a U.S. diplomat in Pakistan, and finally our president recognizing that we've got to shift our focus not just on the global war of terror, but towards China in the Western Pacific. I think this may take a bit of luster off the record of foreign policy of President Obama, but I think overall it's quite a good steps he has taken for America in securing our peace and prosperity around the world.
All right, that'll be the final word. Joe Sestak, Brad Blakeman, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.